The biggest revolution in EV charging isn't about speed, it's about simplicity. We're moving towards a world where charging is as easy as plugging in. No card, no app, no hassle. Welcome back to another episode of EV Charging Minute. I'm here, Tony Booth, your host and the founder of Stay in Charge. Here bringing you good ideas, tips, and ways to improve the ROI on your EV charging at commercial real estate properties. We come here every week, every Friday. You'll find us here with an episode, just trying to share knowledge, trying to share ideas, some best practices, things we know, and eventually start bringing out. We got some guests coming on at some point. We'll bring some of that just so you can learn what some of the other people are seeing and doing. We're going to actually talk to a couple of our customers. We're going to get a few customers to come in and kind of do a show with us and talk about some of the benefits and things as well. So anyway, as you know, we're always here doing that, and today's no different. Today we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the future of the connectors and basically frictionless, what you might call frictionless charging. So we're going to start off with the whole connector thing, right? We're going to talk about that. We've heard a little bit about it. I'll tell you where it's at today and where it really pretty much is headed now here in the U.S. In each of these things, we'll talk about the impacts and kind of a little bit, I want to share a little bit about what to do now, right? So we're going to start off with the NACS plug, which is the North American Charging Standard, NACS, NACS, also AKA the Tesla charger. Okay, the Tesla plug, that is the standard that Tesla developed. It took a little while for everybody to kind of figure out where we were going with this. If you've been paying any attention for a while, we had CCS1, CHAdeMO, and then Tesla was kind of its own little thing. It was the Tesla network, and the Tesla cars had Tesla, but nobody else did. Well, last year and end of last year and throughout this year, that a lot of that changed. Last year, Tesla opened up, and then they, then some of the other manufacturers decided to adopt it, and now pretty much, I know pretty much all the North American automakers are. I'm not sure what's happening yet with some of the foreign cars coming in. I know, if I remember, I actually heard a commercial recently for a Toyota EV, and it said it was on the NACS plug. So obviously a lot of them are moving to that. Pretty much, I think at this point, everybody's going to end up on the NACS system for at least here in the United States. And it's good. It's really, there's a little bit of advantage to it. It's a smaller plug. It's a little bit more, it's a little less cumbersome. It's a little lighter, and it's the same exact plug, whether you're going into a DC or an AC level 2 charge or fast charge. So that's where everything's going with that. Now, what's that mean? Well, first of all, the J1772, which is your 2 plug, the other version of your level 2 plug, and the CCS1, which is your other version of a DC fast charger. Those are not dead yet. Those are, they're not gone. They're not dead yet. There's still some cars being manufactured with those plugs, and there's several models on the road today that use those plugs. So those things are not done. But this whole switch, this whole movement will have an impact on your existing solution and on your future installation. So I'm going to talk first about the impact on your existing hardware. So if you have level 2 stations, your plain old AC stations out in the parking lot kind of thing, you don't have much to worry about here. The adapters are like $30. Pretty much everybody has them. If they have a NACS vehicle, they pretty much have an adapter for a J1772, mainly because the L2s, were put out early on with mostly the J1772s, unless you bought a Tesla charger. So that's not super impact on your current system. Now, if you have DC chargers, okay, yeah, you gotta start thinking about some stuff here, right? If you've got DC chargers, in your parking lot or at your location that are currently all CCS1s or maybe CCS1s and some CHAdeMO, you are basically on the road to being obsolete if you're not careful, right? Because yeah, there's some cars today that have the CCS ones in them, quite a few of them actually, right? But many of them have gotten adapters because they need to use the Tesla networks, and they're being able to use all the NACSs everywhere else. So they're going to stop coming to your location. And plus you've automatically eliminated every Tesla vehicle out there. So if you have DC fast chargers with CCS ones and CHAdeMOs, you need to start thinking about what you can do with that, right? Sometimes there's some stuff that your manufacturer might be able to do. I know that for the most part, it takes a little bit of adjustment on the firmware, and in some cases, there's actually a little, some changes to some of the hardware inside the charger in order to adapt to the NACS standard. I would find out from your supplier, your service provider, if they can talk to the manufacturer and find out. I know a lot of the big charging networks out there have gone out and upgraded their machines to include the NACS plugs. So I think you'd want to kind of look at that as well. Like, hey, can I do that? Which ones can I do? If you can't get the actual cord replaced and swapped to a NACS, then you need to look at some magic dock options. Okay, so there is a company called A to Z. Gentleman there I know, was telling me all about a product they've developed. It's a standalone little kind of pedestal that you can mount next to the charger. And if somebody needs a NACS cable, they grab your CCS cable and they plug it into this pedestal. And then on this pedestal is a coiled up NACS plug. So they just take that plug and plug it into their car. So that works. That's a good way to take your existing CCS and make them NACS without having to do a whole lot. Definitely something worth doing. So if you have existing level 2 hardware, you really don't need to worry about much. I would recommend, if you have customers, clients, people like that are using your chargers, I would recommend at least buying an adapter or two and keep it there where you can share it as needed. If it's residential stuff like that, multifamily, don't worry about it. The drivers will figure out how to get an adapter, and then you can do that. If you have DC chargers, if you haven't already, or if your service provider hasn't already, I would question how much your service provider cares if they haven't, brought you into the NACS world yet. But make sure you take a look at that, get that figured out, make sure you have a way. If I had, any of ours have all been built. Ones we're working on are all being built with a combination. If I had anybody with existing CCS and CHAdeMOs today, I would be telling them to get at least these magic docks in, and I would make every plug available for a NACS as well. Okay. Don't just put one there. Like, do it right. Get plenty of NACS plugs there. All right. So on your existing, that's what you need to pay attention to. Now on new installations, gets a little different. Okay. Starting with the level 2, what we're doing now is a mix. If we are only doing like a single charger or 2 chargers, we still stay with the J1772. It's too easy to to have an adapter there. It's too easy for most people can already plug in a J1772 into their NACS vehicle anyway. So let's not eliminate somebody else, right? Because what you don't see a lot is someone who has a CCS vehicle having an adapter to go from J1772 to NACS. I mean, from NACS to J1772. So they won't have that adapter. So if they, if you have a hotel and you have 2 chargers out there and they have a NACS cable and a CCS cable, if somebody's using, or a J1772, somebody's already plugged into the 1772 and another, Cadillac Lyric pulls up, they can't charge. Okay. So they probably don't have an adapter to take that NACS to a 1772. So, or you could put the NACS and get the adapter yourself as well there. So I would do that on 2. I wouldn't get too worried, but anything above that, we're putting in a mix now. We're putting in a pretty good mix. And, we'll start that mix around a 50-50, but depending on how many chargers we're getting in, the team was designing one the other day. We were going through, and I think we're doing like 30 chargers at a location, and we're going to do 20 NACS at that. And only 10 J1772s, because that's where the future's going. And a lot of this build was all, kind of future built as well. They don't necessarily need 30 chargers today, but it's a new construction, so they wanted to build it right. So on the L2s, go ahead and get that good mix in there, and lean towards the NACS side for sure, but make sure you have some 1772s. The DC side, this is where you want to really lean hard into NACS. What we're looking at in a lot of the ones we're working through with people designing today is going all NACS and having a couple docks, magic dock kind of scenarios where we can convert the NACS to a CCS1. We feel that's a little bit more future-proofed. The bulk of the use is going to be NACS. I mean, yeah, today you probably have maybe 30% of the vehicles out there are going to not be, are going to be CCS1. But that's going to quickly, that 30% is quickly going to go away when you think about, next year, probably 80% of the vehicles, EVs that are sold, are going to be NACS, right? So every year that numbers, that 30% is going to keep on going down to within a few years, your CCS may only be 10, 15% of the vehicles out there. So that's how you want to look at that mix too. So if we were doing a whole, maybe 10 DC fast chargers, yeah, we might put the first two as CCS, like we might put two of them together as CCSs and run the rest NACS. But we're going to have docks no matter what. Even the brand new ones that we put in, if we put in a CCS charger, it's going to have a dock to go to a NACS. So that basically what we're going to do, what I told my team, and just on an overarching view of DC fast charging, is I better be able to fill every single plug, better be able to work for a NACS vehicle, every single one. Now I need some CCSs for sure, because I don't want to eliminate those people. So figure that part out. What that mix is could depend a lot on different things, but we do that. But that's the way we're setting up now. Every single slot, right? Every place that somebody will charge must be able to handle a NACS in some way. Could be with an adapter, or it could be straight up. So that's what I would do on new installations, is make sure you're getting a good mix there. Make sure leaning towards the NACS side, and making sure you're not cutting somebody out prematurely. All right. So that's kind of where the plug side lies, right? Like where you need to think about what you need to do on the plug side. It is all going to NACS. It is great, and that's fine. And it's a shame it took a few years for that to all shake out. It was talked about ever since I've been paying attention to this space. 5 years ago, they talked about it, and nobody wanted to make the switch early on. Don't know why, but anyhow, it is now. We are using the North American charging standard, and that's a good thing. All right. Now let's talk about some of that stuff that gets more into the simplicity side of things, right? The connector side, that's simple, but once we get all to one, it's simple because everybody knows, you don't have to, is that a NACS plug? Is that a CCS plug? CHAdeMO, what's available there? When everything's on NACS, it's going to make that simple. But what really gets simple is this plug to charge stuff that is in the works, and actually here in some cases. A lot of it falls into what you'll hear people talk about is ISO 15118. So international standards, ISO, right? That's a lot of automotive standards are all done on ISO. There is a standard that was written for basically EV charging in a certain section of it, and it deals with plug to charge capabilities, and it deals with vehicle to grid capabilities. Right now we're focusing on the plug to charge. So what's great about this is like when I explain this about, it's like, think about this. If you pull up to the gas station, because everybody knows how to pump gas, unless you live in New Jersey, you pull up to a gas station, and if you could pull up to that gas station, all you got to do is grab the handle and stick it in, open the flap to your gas tank, grab the pump handle and stick it in the gas tank. And then that's all you had to do. Right. And then walk away, wait. And then when it's full, it would beep and you're done and full. You take it out, hang it back up. That's pretty simple, right? No swiping credit cards, no pushing handles, no selecting, no nothing. Just push it in and off you go. Well, that's the simplicity of plug to charge. Anybody out there that drives a Tesla, this already, right? Tesla built their network this way from the ground up. When you own a Tesla or you use a Tesla, or even now, if you're using the Tesla network, when you create your account in your mobile app, in their mobile app, you put your VIN number in there. Tesla chargers know how to communicate with the car and grab the VIN number. Because they can do all that, they can now use that VIN number to determine who's at the charger. And as long as you have a credit card associated with your account with that VIN number, then the car just starts charging. So that's the value of this plug to charge. It's very, very simple and easy. Plug it in, charge your car, communicate. Oh, there it is, VIN number, sends it up to a little thing. Yep, I got a credit card for it. Start charging. It's great. That's the future. ISO 15118 is going to help us get there. But as you know, I mentioned there's already some networks to have it. At Stay in Charge, we have that ability on our network already. There's several out there. I know EVgo's done it and some others. I don't know exactly who, but I know a lot of people have. It's not exactly the same. It's not working exactly the same way as this future ISO, as the 118 will, because it's still limited to the network. So with mine, anybody that has an account on my network can go in, put their VIN number in, and when they go to one of my chargers that has this capability, right now it's the DC side only. When they go to that, they just plug in, just like they do with a Tesla network. But you still had to have an account in my app. And it's the same with EVgo and some of the others. I can do plug to charge, but I have to have an account with them so that their network knows my VIN number. So that's kind of where the thing is today. It's still kind of like one of those, it's great, it works perfect, but it only works in individual networks. So for it to become ubiquitous across many, I'd have to register in all those different apps. As 15118 gets more rolled out and more available, its goal is to build a universal scenario. So there would be some type of universal back office clearinghouse that would recognize the VIN number, recognize that because that person happened to registered inside the Tesla app and put a credit card, then it would know, okay, yep, we got a credit card on that vehicle. Here it is over here. And it would have let it charge. Or they're registered on my account, on my app, then they could use my app to, basically have to have some way of knowing where to go to that credit card to get the money, to pull the money out of the account and send it to the applicable owner of the charging station. 118 is going to give us all that interoperability when it happens, when it's finally grown up in there. It's going to be fabulous because you'll be able to pull up into any network out there that says it's 15118 compatible and just plug your car in, right? Those of you that drive EVs today, you know how great that's going to be. I'm in the business and I don't like the fact that we have to have so many apps to do charging, okay? So this 118 is going to make that very, very easy and helpful. But it is, keep in mind, it is going to still take a little while. Okay. I think the standard is there. The ISO standard's there. That's great. People are building to it. So we have all this thing, but I don't think they've quite figured out how the whole kind of like, I guess, a central banking system is going to work. Like, who is the clearinghouse and where is the, because somebody's got to do that, right? Somebody's got to run a network and somebody's got to run some interconnectivity back and forth to these different accounts to determine, who's doing what and who's paying for what. So I think that part's still in the mix of trying to figure it out, where that goes, but it'll get there, no doubt. And when it does, it's going to be cool. It's going to be nice. Still be a little time, I think, before you see it very ubiquitous on the level 2 side, only because it's kind of like, it's not public charging. So for the most part, right? Like if you're on the road trying to get somewhere, you're not really pulling into a level 2 to charge when you need to, charge up in 30 minutes. So the level 2s, it's kind of putting a lot of burden on a level 2 system that maybe you don't need. So it's just, if you're using level 2s, it's because you're at a hotel, you're at your apartment complex, you're at your work, you're kind of going to the same places over and over again thing. So it's not too bad. It might get there, but I know there's, on the hardware side, some of the tools and some of the communication capabilities are not necessarily built into that hardware. So it'll be a trade-off, right? The big thing you got to think about is that's going to be a trade-off. Do you want to spend an extra $500 or $1,000 on do you want to double the price of your chargers so that your resident can just plug and charge? I don't know. That's a good question, and we'll see where that goes. Maybe in the future it drives down, costs aren't that bad, and plug and charge is ubiquitous everywhere. But for now, you're going to see it mostly come into the level 2 or the DC fast charging side. So what do you need to worry about here? The biggest thing to worry about here is if you already have a system, if you're up and running, when you get a chance, talk to your service provider, figure out, are you ready for this stuff? Are you going to be there when it gets there? Are they even able to do it now? Because it would be nice now, like if some of your people if you have regular people coming by using your DC chargers, wouldn't it be nice if they just had to plug and charge? So think about that, find out from your providers. And then if you're looking to build, this is where, you just want to make sure that, I would tell anybody that's building today that you want to make sure that your hardware is 15118 ready. Make sure you check that question, because I do know from some of the ones that we use that there is a different module that may have to go into the charger to be 15118 ready. So I know for our chargers, from some of the manufacturers we buy from, there's an upcharge for 118 because it's a different module inside there. So if we didn't get that module when we bought it, even though 15118 may not be ready to be used yet, when the time comes, we wouldn't be able to upgrade. So we've been installing 15118 ready chargers for this entire year. Like we made the switch end of last year into making sure we're 118 compatible and ready. And so that's good. On the software side, that could be some programming still. So what I would ask of your program people or your software people, are they moving towards that? Are they building that? What you'll actually see, we're going to talk about this in a minute too. Are they building OCPP 2.0 is the real question. So that we know that the software is going to get there and be capable. At least you're not replacing anything in a software side. It's bits and stuff. So once they get it ready to go 118 compatible, you'll be fine. So the main thing is on that hardware. Make sure you got that. So when you're doing that, then I want to bring this up. I just want to share this. When you're doing that, I would go one step further in that questioning on both the hardware and the software and ask about vehicle to grid compatibility as well. All right. So OCPP, the Open Charge Point Protocol Software Spec 2.0, deals with both of those aspects on the software side. So if your software is working towards that, you're going to be okay and be able to do that. Hardware is a little different. Vehicle to grid definitely gets a little bit more complicated. Definitely going to need a utility grade meter inside it, right? Because you're in a vehicle to grid scenario, you're talking about possibly feeding back to the grid. So maybe there's a reversal of your meter, credit for that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that you have all that if it's going to be applicable. And we're going to get into this a little bit more in depth next week. I want to talk about this next week. But if you're a typical retail, not necessarily, workplace, you could probably do a little vehicle to grid stuff. But if you're like a hotel, retail, things like that, residential, maybe not. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought through that side of it yet as to whether this really matters or not. But what this is about is the concept behind vehicle to grid that a lot of people feel may come in the future is that electric vehicles that are lined up, plugged into a charging system. And really, when you think about this, think about a fleet. So let's say you got a fleet of vehicles and they all, maybe they run overnight, maybe they run early in the morning and they come back to their depot at noon, they plug up and now their batteries are charging up. And all of a sudden we hit peak afternoon time and there's a strain on the grid and the grid needs more power. Well, if they could go in and suck power out of that fleet of vehicles, right? Like, let's just say they could go in and say, okay, we're going to take power out of these vehicles to supply the grid for the next 2 hours, because we know that when that demand is over, those vehicles still have 6 hours to charge. We can then load them up and charge them back up. And the power company will pay that fleet for that capability. So that's where we think this might go. There's definitely some possibility of that working. So obviously when we start doing that, there's going to be some hardware stuff. The other place that vehicle to grid kind of, just thinking about this is you'd be able to like power your home. You'd be able to like power your office. If you've got a couple EVs out there and something happens, you need to power the office, that they can do it. So that requires a little bit more on the hardware side. If you're, like I said, if you're doing general public charging, like obviously if I pull up to your DC fast charger, right, and I'm on my trip and it tells me to plug in for 14 minutes, if you start putting me into something where you're sucking power out of my battery, I'm unplugging, right? Like I'm not going to be very happy with you. I'm not there to support you selling power back, right? Like forget it, right? So this doesn't matter in that scenario. I don't know anywhere on a public charging scenario where I would see me pulling power from some random person's car to sell back to the grid. So I'm not going to worry about making sure I'm V2G capable there. But if I have a fleet, if I have things like that, I'm going to look at this, at least, do some contemplating about it. All right. It is something that's coming down the road. It may grow into more than I think even, right? I know there's some people that are really bullish on this becoming a great way to end brownouts and things like that. But, I just think that's difficult. I don't quite, follow the same thought process as they do. The bulk of peak demands are like late afternoon, mid to late afternoon. And when's everybody driving, right? Like everybody's unplugging from work and driving home, right? Like that's when all the traffic's on the road too. It's not anywhere that I can pull charging from it. So it's kind of a thing that's in the air. It's coming, but if you're future proofing, see about getting it. All right. So that's really all we had to talk about today. A couple key things to consider from today to wrap it up here. If you're building new, or if you have existing and you're basically CCS, make sure you do some upgrades to get NACS plugs. NACS plugs are the future. You need to support them. Then on the rest of your stuff with this plug to charge that's coming, it's going to be one of the best things to make it simple and easy. So make sure you talk to your people, that make sure your hardware, your software, and all that stuff is 15118 compatible and OCPP 2.0 ready. Okay. Maybe your software is not quite there yet. Maybe you're don't worry about that, but make sure the stuff is ready for all this stuff. Make sure the hardware, especially, because we don't want to have to upgrade something a year from now because we didn't think about it today. All right. That's all. We're wrapping up today. Remember, next week, we're going to talk about that vehicle to grid thing and the potentials of power sharing and maybe even generating a little revenue from fleets. We're going to talk a little bit about that whole thing, just kind of how what some people think it is, and kind of get your own opinion from it. It's interesting, and it's going to be cool to see what happens. It definitely will, make a big difference in bad weather times, things like that, because you got your car or your truck at home, it's plugged in, it's charged up, and wintertime power goes out. Guess what? If you got a big enough battery in your truck, you're powering your house for the next 3 days. So that part is pretty cool. So anyway, that's next week. Wrapping up for today. I hope everybody learned something new today, as always, and enjoy your weekend. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you next week.